Welcome to the Massachusetts ceremonies commemorating this 22nd anniversary of the attacks of September 11th, 2001. As we begin, we kindly ask that you turn off your cell phone for the duration of the service. Today, we read the names of 219 Massachusetts loved ones who were lost on September 11th. As we listen to their names, we honor their memory and our national commitment to never forget. Behind each name is a unique person that was taken from us far too soon, and there are families and friends and a nation that has been forever changed because of their loss. Please join us in quiet reflection as we listen to Josh Groban's "To Where You Are," after which we will begin the name reading ceremony. Thank you.
Who can say for certain? Maybe you're still here. I feel you all around me, your memory so clear. Deep in the stillness, I can hear you speak. You're still an inspiration. Can it be that you are mine forever, love, and you are watching over me from up above? Fly me up to where you are beyond the distant star. Tonight to see you smile, if only for a while to know you're there. A breath away is not far to where you are. Are you gently sleeping here inside my dream? And isn't faith believing all power can't be seen? As my heart holds you just one beat away, I cherish all you gave me every day. 'Cause you are mine forever, love, watching me from up above. And I believe that angels breathe, and that love will live on and never leave. Fly me up to where you are beyond the distant star. I wish upon tonight to
please join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please take your seats.
I will be reading a poem in honor of those taken from their loved ones on September 11th, 2001. The poem, entitled We Remember Them, is often read as a responsive poem. After I read each line of the poem, I invite you to join me in reciting the phrase, "We remember them." At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
Stephen G. Adams, Gertrude Trudy Alajero, Anna S.W. Allison, Barbara Arestigay, Myra Joy Aronson, Yafet Arfe, Louis F. Aversano Jr., Garnet Ace Bailey, Christine Johanna Barbudo.
Graham Berkeley, David W. Bernard, Mark Bingham, Jeffrey D. Bittner, Kelly Ann Booms, Carol Marie Bouchard, Michael R. Canty, Christopher M. Karstanjan, Neely Ann Heffernan, Casey, William Casper.
Swarna Kalasani, Stephen Cherry, Jeffrey William Cloud, Jeffrey D. Coleman, Kevin Patrick Connors, Jeffrey William Coombs, John J. Corcoran III, Frederick John Cox Jr., Tara Kathleen Creamer, Wells Remy Crowther.
Thelma Cuccinello, Patrick J. Curavan, Dorothy Alma Diarujo, Captain Gerald DeCanto, U.S. Navy, Lieutenant Manuel de Valle Jr., FDNY, Gerard Jerry P. Dewan, FDNY, Simon Donani, David DeMeglio, Donald Americo DeTullio, Alberto Pocho Dominguez, Jamie Lynn Fallon, Alexander M. Filipoff, John R. Fisher, Richard P. Fitzsimmons, Carol Ann Fleisick, Alan Friedlander, Paul Joshua Friedman, Peter Christian Fry, Carlton Douglas Fife, Thomas Edward Galvin, and my beautiful, kind, funny, and very missed sister, Susan Lee Blair.
Douglas Gardner, Peter A. Gay, Wenda Mae George, Edmund Glazer, Wynne Catherine Goodchild, Peter M. Goodrich, Lisa Finn Gordonstein, Douglas A. Gowell, Andrew Curry Green, Donald Freeman Green,
Reverend Francis Edward Grogan, Philip T. Guza, Paige Farley Hackle, May Lee Hale, Carl Hammond, Christine Hansen, Peter Burton Hansen, Sue Kim Hansen, Gerald Hardager, Melissa Harrington Hughes, and my beloved brother,
and my brother-in-law and good friend,
John Brett Cahill.
Eric Hartono, John C. Hartz, Peter P. Hashem, James E. Hayden, Robert J. Hayes, Roberta Bernstein Heber, Edward R. Hennessy Jr., Norberto Hernandez, Todd R. Hill, Herbert Wilson Homer, Matthew Horning, John Nicholas Humber, Eric Hans Isbranson, Walid J. Iskandar, Aaron J. Jacobs, Jason K. Jacobs, Robert Adrian Jalbert, Griselda E. Gayro James, Amy Nicole Jarrett, John Jenkins, Joseph Jenkins Jr., and my uncle, Mark L. Davis.
Arthur Joseph Jones III, Colonel Charles Edward Jones, U.S. Air Force, Jennifer Lynn Kane, Robin L. Kaplan. Sergeant Robert M. Colfers. Richard M. Key. Barbara A. Keating. Ralph F. Kershaw. Brian Kevin Kinney. Glenn Davis Kerwin. David P. Kovalson. Catherine L. Labori. Judy C. LaRock. Natalie Janice Lasden. Robert G. LeBlanc. Dong Lee. Joseph A. Lenihan. Jeffrey Levine. Daniel Lewin. Sarah Elizabeth Lowe. And my sweet and loving mother, Cora Hidalgo Holland.
Sean Patrick Lynch, Marianne McFarland, Susan McElhaney McKay, L. Neil Mariani, Kenneth Joseph Marino, FDNY, Karen Ann Martin, Joseph Matai, Margaret Matic, Kevin M. McCarthy, Juliana Valentine McCourt, Ruth Clifford McCourt, Michael Gregory McGinty, First Officer Thomas F. McGinnis, Jr., Gavin McMahon, Christopher Daniel Mello, Stuart Todd Meltzer, Raymond James Metz III, Martin P. Michelstein, Master Special Officer Craig J. Miller, U.S. Secret Service, Antonio Montoya, and my beloved son, William Christopher Hunt. Carlos Beto Montoya, Captain Thomas Moody, FDNY, Laura Lee DeFazio Morabito, Richard Morgan, Christopher M. Morrison, Brian Joseph Murphy, Mildred Rose Naiman, Sean Nasani, Lori Ann Olson Nara, Renee Tatrold Newell, Kathleen Ann Nikosha, Jacqueline Norton, Robert Grant Norton, Captain John Oganowski, Leah E. Oliver, Seamus O'Neill, Betty Ann Ong, Jane M. Orth, Michael Benjamin Packer, Marie Papalardo, and my funny, lovable brother from whom we will never move on, Ariel.
And my uncle,
Ariel Lewis Jacobs.
Robert Pattison, Thomas Nicholas Piccarelli, Todd D. Pelino, Berinthia Berenson Perkins, Jean Peterson, Dennis J. Pierce, Everett Marty Proctor III, Carrie Beth Progen, Patrick J. Quigley IV, Jonathan C. Randall, Timothy E. Riley, David Elliott Reddick, Venetia Richards, Dr. Fred Rimele, Isaias Rivera, Valeska Martinez Rivera, Stephen L. Roach, Raymond James Rocha, Laura Rockefeller, Jean Destrahan Roger, and my amazing mother, Sonia Mercedes Morales Popolo, whose ring they found under 1.6 million tons of rubble at Ground Zero.
Philip M. Rosenzweig, Richard Barry Ross, Michael Craig Rothberg, James M. Rue, Jessica Lee Sachs, Rama Salih, Jesus Jr. Sanchez, Matthew Carmen Salido, Kathleen Shearer, Robert M. Shearer, Antoinette Sherman, Jane Louise Simpkin, Heather Smith, Diane Bullis Snyder, Eric Adam Stallman, Craig William Staub, Timothy C. Stout, Edward W. Straub, Brian David Sweeney, Madeline Amy Sweeney, Kevin T. Suzik,
Deborah Tavalarella, Leonard Lenny E. Taylor, Michael Theodorides, Eric Rick Thorpe, Alicia Nicole Titus, Amy E. Toyin, Daniel Trent, Jim Trentini, Mary Trentini, Tyler Ugelin, Michael Augustine Giuliano, Kenneth E. Waldy, Maida Fuller Waller, Stephen Ward, William Michael Weems, John J. Wenkus, Peter Matthew West, Staff Sergeant Maudlin A. White, U.S. Army, Candace Lee Williams, Christopher R. Zarba, Jr., and my beloved husband, Kenneth Albert Zellman.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. This concludes the first part of our ceremony this morning. We invite you to join us in the House chambers for the commemoration, observance, and presentation of the Madeline Amy Sweeney Award for Civilian Bravery.
Hello and welcome to our dignitaries, Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, Inspector General Jeff Shapiro, Veterans Secretary John Santiago, representatives and senators in attendance. Thank you all for joining us here in the House chamber as part of the official Massachusetts 9/11 commemoration, where today we mark and honor the 22nd anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. We gather in solemn remembrance of the tragic losses suffered on that day. As each anniversary of this devastating event arises, we remember again the events and feelings from that day and resolve anew to honor legacies and reaffirm ideals. The enormity of the attack and loss on September 11th affected us all. It changed how we understood our place in the world and what it means to be an American. The attack also irreparably changed the lives of many children. Children who were infants, school-aged, and teenagers when their parents or family members were killed that day. Children who have experienced the numerous milestones over the past 22 years without their parents by their side. Graduations, holidays, and family celebrations without their loved ones. With respect to them and to the families, friends, loved ones, and all those touched by this tragedy, I welcome Pat Hoban, who serves on the Mass 9/11 Family Advisory Committee and whose brother John perished on September 11th. Pat and her sisters lost their only brother John in the tragic events 22 years ago today. On November 11th, 2001, Pat was a school nurse in a Metro West middle school, and as part of the school's crisis team had to support students and faculty that day. Later that same afternoon, she found out that her brother was a victim as a passenger on United 175. Please welcome our MC for today's event, Pat Cahill Hoban.
Good morning, and thank you, Speaker Pro Tem Kim Hogan, for welcoming us to this hallowed historic chamber for our 2023 commemoration of the tragic events 22 years ago that bind us together in our loss and in our found love for each other over the years. Like most of you, and as Kim said, I went to work that morning. And as she told you, I was a Metro West middle school nurse. On the crisis team, we decided that we would inform the students in 3 separate assemblies. So those assemblies started at roughly 9:45, about 45 minutes after the second plane hit. You know, our crisis team brought extra care and support to students. That day in particular, my daily routine was changed a little bit. I had 2 students in particular. One was the youngest of a large family who had an older sister who worked at the World Trade Center. The other, whose father may have been flying that Tuesday morning. After many phone calls and very odd busy signals, because cell phones in the metropolitan area were scrambled, so another bomb could be set off. I got in touch with both parents. Both of these students' resolutions were positive. The older sister was at a business, who worked in the World Trade Center, was at a business breakfast at the Waldorf Astoria in Midtown Manhattan. The second young woman, who thought her father was scheduled to fly out that morning, was rescheduled and sent to the Cambridge Hotel to give the talk that he was going to give in California. And he thought he'd do it later that week. So her mother came to pick her up. Both kids went home. In those days, there were no computer notes, so I was handwriting my notes. and my phone rang. And it was my nephew, and I said, "Oh, isn't that funny? Sean did well if we let you out of school." I said, "Our students are still here." And with that, the phone was taken. And my sister-in-law, she can follow this, sister, grabbed the phone and said to me, "Patsy, did you know Cahill was flying today?" They always referred to my brother by his surname. And I said, "No, I thought he was going to California sometime this week." And then it dawned on me, he was on one of the planes. So that's how I found out. I had a lunch tray in front of me. To this day, I can't tell you what was on that lunch tray. Can't tell you how the tray left my office. And I called my husband and informed him that he had lost one of his best friends. We met to go pick up our boys at Needham High School. And then my sisters and I had made the decision that we would tell my mother together. She was 89 years old at the time. So we met at the park that we played at as kids and walked to my mother's house. And my mother went to mass every day at noontime. So the girls, who were the 60s to 70-year-olds, had been talking about a plane crash in New York. So she was wondering if we were there because someone in our family might be hurt. My mother regularly watched the 6 o'clock news, but it was only about 4:15 that we had arrived at the house. So she hadn't had the news on. She usually had Boston Catholic TV on, or the Weather Channel, and those weren't broadcasting a lot about 9/11, so she didn't have a clue. So finally she looked at us and she said, "Someone's hurt, aren't they?" And so we turned on the television and we waited for what I now call the little plane coming around the corner and going into the South Tower. And we told her John was on that plane. And her first thought was, is he hurt bad? And then it dawned on her that it exploded. So we all cried together, and the decision was made that Mom would come to my house. Because my boys were there, and she had taken care of them since they were babies, and there'd be diversion. So off we went. Again, to this day, I don't know when she went home or when I went back to work. Just in a fog of grief and loss, as most of you must have been. So today, today as we honor those who lost the most, the living legacies, the children of 9/11, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speakers, Stephanie Holland and Mara Oliver.
Dear Mom, I'm sitting on my deck, a deck you've never been to, and experienced a relaxing, delicious feast so many that I love so dearly have, watching the sun peek through the trees that surround the backyard. My sneakers are wet with the morning dew after taking the dogs. Yes, I was the sucker who rescued 2 dogs 3 months apart from each other to the park for their morning walk and watch the sun come up over Boston, a ritual that has become as just a part of my morning routine as my morning cup of coffee. Despite now living half-hour drive from Sudbury, I still trek there once a month to stock up on my favorite coffee beans. I take comfort in driving around the small town that you called home, the town that you loved so much and never missed a 4th of July parade. I think it would make you smile that I've met your best friend, the Thelma to your Louise, at this coffee shop so many times after the last 2 decades to catch up on life. One of the many wise things you taught me during the 30 years I was with you was the importance of friendships. Like all of the life lessons you've taught me, I really didn't get it until years after you died. The birth of these gems of coral wisdom typically manifest themselves at the most unexpected times, during a run, lying shavasana at the end of a yoga class, and cooking a family meal to the sounds of earth, wind, and fire. Reading on a lazy Sunday morning with a tray full of dippy eggs, a cup of coffee, and a combined effort to tackle the Sunday Times crossword with the person who introduced dippy eggs into my life. Mom, you would love dippy eggs, and you would love him too. The fabric that runs through all of these aha moments, they are ones of love, peace, and joy. They are the essence of you. I've had all summer to write this speech. I had grandiose plans of writing while overlooking the magnificent coastline of Ireland this past August. It was only on the plane ride home that I had eventually got out my laptop and began to write. I wrote for about an hour and then decided to watch Eat, Pray, Love for the 10th time. A book that was transformative for me as a writer, and from a writer who I continuously seek out for guidance. Elizabeth Gilbert writes, "Deep grief sometimes is almost like a specific location, a coordinate on a map of time. When you are standing in that forest of sorrow, you cannot imagine that you could ever find your way to a better place. But if someone can assure you that they themselves have stood in that same place and now have moved on, sometimes this will bring hope." Mom, there has been a coordinate on my map of grief for the past 22 years. A coordinate that has loomed over my being with an internal clock ticking away. The year I turned 52, the age you were when you died. Mom, I turned 52 last month. This week, I reread what I had written on my transatlantic flight, and I just knew it wasn't going to work. The one thing I always tell my students is, writing is like trying on different shoes. You're going to have to try on a bunch, and you'll know when it feels right. It's going to come straight from your heart. And these past few mornings, despite being surrounded by love, I've woken up with this heaviness within me. It happens every September. I guess I have an internal clock of grief. My body knows before my head and my heart. Maybe it's the chill that lingers in the morning from the previous night, the sighting of school buses marking the beginning of a new school year, and the inundation of everything pumpkin. Yes, Mom, I bought pumpkin Cheerios. There is a slight shift in me, and even though it is ever so slight, it sometimes feels like my whole world is out of balance. Because September also brings the month we lost you, and images that I try so hard to forget. They re-enter my life in moments when I least expect them. My armor goes up, and I feel things with a reserved battery, and not the one that I love that is full of wonder and an open heart. Just get through these 11 days is the banner that runs through my mind. And that's when I knew I had to write this from what was my present. I have committed my head and heart to being present for the last 22 years. Because whatever words come out on this last official day of summer, exactly 1 week before the 22nd marking of your death, it was going to be from the heart. I owe that to you and to me. As much as I try to focus on your life and not the way you died during those early days of September 22 years ago, my memories are always flooded with the last time I saw you. On that quiet Monday evening, you insisted my young family come over for dinner before you left for California. I'd like to think it was to see me, but we all know that you wanted one last hug, one last squeeze, with your only 2 grandchildren at the time, who were 2 and 3 months old. That summer that we had just said goodbye to was a turning point for you. You had seen 2 of your children graduate from college and high school, and you were now officially an I spoke, if not saw you, every day as I tried to navigate having a toddler and a newborn. You accompanied me to every grocery store trip because at the age of 30, I honestly didn't know how to console a screaming infant and manage a toddler who gleefully loved to clear the shelves and dump their contents into our cart. After attending college part-time, you now have the time to go back and finish your degree in early childhood education. Though bittersweet, like so many parents feel at this transition in life, you were ready for what awaited you in this next chapter, reimagining your definition of motherhood, grandmotherhood, partner, and most importantly, self. I vaguely remember you chasing Abby and holding Amelia while packing, apologizing for ordering Thai takeout because you were busy packing for your upcoming trip. Over dinner, you listened patiently as I shared my nervousness about sending my toddler to preschool 2 days a week, and you reassured me it would be fine. After all, you had sent your own child there for 15 years before. You put both kids in their car seats, kissed them both on the forehead, and said, "Don't grow up too much while I'm gone." 13 hours later, you were gone from our lives forever, and the ticking of the clock started. To 30-year-old Stephanie, yes, Mom, I still like to refer to myself in the third person, you were a grown-up. You knew how to make a perfect Thanksgiving turkey, complete with a mini sombrero to celebrate our Mexican heritage, throw a dinner party without the smoke alarm going off, and you always knew the perfect gift to buy for the people you love most. You juggled various volunteer positions, all while being super mom, super wife, and super friend. You never complained and made it look so easy. Every year that I got closer to 52, I thought, I had no business turning 52 without these critical life skills, especially the Thanksgiving turkey. Somewhere in my 40s, there was a shift. I had spent a good decade or so trying to be as like you as much as I could. It was exhausting. As I navigated the ups and downs of my own life, I began wondering who you were outside of the role you loved so much, mother. What were your dreams, your thoughts, and your fears? I had been so consumed with losing my mom, I hadn't paid enough attention to the loss of you, for you, and I began to grieve in a different way. I wanted to know what you were like when you met your friends for dinner, when you shared your concerns about us 3 kids with Dad, and what kept you up at night. With clarity and confidence, I knew from my heart that my narrative of motherhood would be one that my own children would know me as Stephanie, as well as the title of mom. So many of the decisions in my parenting have been filtered through that. I never want my kids to have to go through what I went through. Filter. And this desire to have my kids know me as me was no different. I often wonder too if you wanted that for just Nate and I. Maybe you were just about to begin to unveil a little bit more of you, Cora. I'd like to think you were. That toddler and infant of 22 years ago, they're now 24 and 22. They know what makes me me. Makes me cry, angers me, and then I get lost in the Target parking lot every time I go and can't find my car. One of my most favorite memories is a dinner not too long ago where they both shared the things they learned from Stephanie, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as I sat there and laughed with them, I realized they really do know me, to the core. Mom, if I had one wish, it would be for you to spend an afternoon with them. They are by far what I am most proud of in this world, and it still makes me so sad that they never both got an opportunity to feel your love, hear your laugh, and know the most influential person in my life. The memories they have of you are filtered through my lens. It was when I stopped trying to be you that I got to know you. My early morning conversations with you while walking the dogs, they're my favorite. Without knowing it much at the time, you've been guiding me to my own brand of motherhood, which is peppered with flakes of yours. So Mom, I just turned 52. Like you when we lost you. I am undergoing some beautiful life transitions in my personal and professional life. I experience them with presence, love, and joy. I feel them for me, and I feel them for you. I get to continue the life that you couldn't, and it is an honor. And just so you know, we're hosting Thanksgiving this year, and maybe, just maybe, the smoke detector won't go off. And then again, maybe it will. Because the turkey on the table with the sombrero on it, that is 100% you. And the smoke detector going off, that is 100% me. And I am completely fine with that. There is a new coordinate on my life map, 53. There is no fear, no dread. I am not scared. I'm on my way to a place you were never given the chance to turn to. Though I can't hold your hand and lead the way, you are with me every step of the way. Smoke detectors going off in the kitchen and all. With all my love, Steph. And I am now going to introduce our next family speaker, Mara Alvarado.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for being here today. My name is Mara Alvarado, and a beautiful woman named Susan Lee Blair was my aunt. She was killed in the attacks on September 11, 2001. On that day, 22 years ago, I was barely 3 years old. At 3 years old, I couldn't really understand what was going on. I didn't know why Mom was so sad, why there were so many people at our house. I didn't understand the struggle my parents were dealing with, not only coping with the loss of Susie, but also the difficulty of how they were going to tell me one of my favorite people wasn't going to ever come back. There would be no more bedtime stories or lazy summer mornings with her playing in the yard, no more matching outfits or chalk drawings. As children of 9/11, we were robbed of the future with our people, and at 3 years old, how do you begin to understand that? Growing up in the direct shadow of 9/11 has been confusing. It's having to retroactively grieve as you grow to understand more and learn what happened. Understanding what took your person away. It's knowing those around you have already gone through stages of grief when you are only just beginning. It's the pangs of grief that hit you at random moments, like looking at a pink sunset or flipping through a photo album and landing on a wonderful, smiling face that you don't get to see anymore. It's holding on to anger for longer than some because you only now no longer are processing the horrors of that day. It's sitting in the back of a college classroom, having to watch the videos you've been avoiding your whole life. It's sitting in school, hearing people recount their memories of the day, and having to hold back tears because you still haven't processed it enough to come to terms and have an open conversation. But it's also coming to terms and coming through the other side of the anger and the pain. In writing this speech, I gave a lot of thought about what it means to be a child of 9/11. It is a great weight to carry, but is one I am willing and proud to have. It means I get to show the world who my Susie was. We think of our loved ones every single day. We plant gardens with flowers because they were her favorite. We get tattoos so that when we look down, we are always reminded of her. We hang on to old clothes far past their time so that we can try and squeeze out just one more hug. I and everyone who knew her gets to carry on her legacy. The legacy of our loved ones is also kept alive by what we do every day to try and make them proud, or just take steps they never got the opportunity to take. I held Susie with me as I took one of the biggest leaps of faith last year, moving out on my own to Cape Cod, one of her favorite places, because I just knew she would not let me turn an opportunity like that down. Legacy is also volunteering, because that's something she loved doing, especially working with the Special Olympics as a hugger, because that's just who she was. It's thinking of how often she laughed and how she worked to make people's days better and trying to emulate that ourselves. Honoring their legacy is also working to keep their dreams alive. When the attacks happened, Susie was in the process of a career change. She was working towards becoming a teacher so she could help kids. Sadly, she never got to achieve that dream. However, to honor her, my family set up a scholarship in her name at her alma mater, the Susan L. Blair Memorial Scholarship. This scholarship is for students who were either personally affected by the attacks on 9/11 or for students majoring in child development or education, looking to commit to enriching the lives of children, just like she wanted to do. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge our new friend Lauren Wilkinson. Lauren is the latest recipient of the Susan L. Blair Memorial Scholarship, and we are so grateful that she's here with us today. So, what does it mean to be a child of 9/11? For me, it's appreciating that we never know when a day or moment may be our last. We should strive to see the good in every day, even when it's hard to see past life challenges. It's taking the weight of grief and trying to make something of it. It's being a living legacy. Susie's legacy was that she loved big and laughed often. She cared about people, especially children. She was a special person who knew how to make everyone smile. Keeping her in my mind and heart, working to keep her legacy alive, has meant that despite losing my aunt that day, I was still able to grow up with her looking down upon me, holding my hand during both the scary and exciting times. I hope she is proud of the woman I have become and am still becoming. She's been such a huge part of my journey, and I am still on the ride. Thank you all again for being here today, honoring the legacy of those that we love so dearly.
Mara, thank you for your beautiful words. And now I would like to introduce the Boston Children's Choir in the balcony, and they will be singing United in Song by Mara Esabel Valverde.
This is a time to cherish. It's a time to come together in tribute and thanksgiving. A time to hear all the charming, tender stories. A time to revel in 1,000 beautiful moments. A time to capture once more the visions of that smile. A time to embrace the last of your beloved, and to memorialize for all times the gift of one precious life.
It is my pleasure to introduce another living legacy, and that is Amy Sweetie to do the Madeline Amy Sweetie Award with Lieutenant Governor Driscoll.
Thank you and welcome. My name is Anna Sweeney, and Madeline Amy Sweeney was my beloved mother. On behalf of my family, thank you to all responsible for making sure that my mother's spirit and heroism is recognized each year on 9/11 through the Commonwealth's Madeline Amy Sweeney Award for Civilian Bravery. Specifically, I'd like to thank the previous award recipients for attending this year's event. Your presence is greatly appreciated. Like so many acts of bravery that go unknown and unrecognized every day, there is no doubt in our minds that others on Flight 11 were also truly courageous. It's important to my family that I acknowledge the bold and never forgotten acts of bravery of my mother's fellow flight crew on Flight 11. Captain John Oganowski, First Officer Thomas McGinnis, Flight Attendants Bobby Arestigi, Jeffrey Coleman, Sarah Lowe, Karen Martin, Kathleen Nikoja, Betty Ong, Jean Roger, and Diane Schneider. Standing before you all 22 years to the day that our lives changed forever feels surreal to say the least. A lot can happen in 22 years, but so much can stay frozen in time. Whether intentionally or not, much of my life has been measured in milestones that my mom should have been here for. This year's a big one. I'm getting married at the end of the year. I have felt her loss more profoundly during this process, thinking of the things I know she would have done with me, or moments she would have had planned out my entire life. I'm so lucky to have a support system around me to pick up where she left off, but she's been on my mind more this year more than ever. Would she like my dress? What would she say to me before I walk down the aisle? I think about my future and the idea of having children, and I grapple with the idea of becoming a mom in the future. I find myself facing grief again in new ways and mourning the loss of the wonderful grandmother that she could have been, because I know she would have been the best one. I know she'll be with me every step of the way, just as she's always been. With every new chapter of my life comes a new chapter of loss, something I know everyone here knows all too well. But it also brings cause for celebration, because if I've learned anything, it's that life feels too short if lived without love and purpose. It's her purpose I hope to move forward through these years, knowing that even in her absence, she's taught me everything I've ever needed to know. It is now my pleasure and privilege to welcome up to the podium Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll to make this very special presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and I want to really express my gratitude to Pat, to Stephanie, to Mara, to Anna for sharing so much about your loved ones with us and your own journeys since 9/11. I want to recognize Speaker Pro Tem Hogan, members of the legislature who have joined us this morning, as well as dignitaries and guests, our first responders, our military veterans, and clergy. Thank you for coming together to uphold this special and unique tradition in the state. And to our honored guests, the family members of those who were lost on September 11th, 2001. It is a deep privilege for Governor Healy and I, along with everyone in our state, to pay tribute to your loved ones today. We thank you for all the ways you have shared your spirit to make the world a better place through the Massachusetts 9/11 Fund and beyond. It's been truly a moving experience for me as Lieutenant Governor to serve on the Sweeney Award Committee, to get to know the Sweeney family and Amy Sweeney's impact on so many people, and to review the nominations and learn about so many courageous people in our state. 9/11 changed America and changed Massachusetts forever. It taught us some hard truths about evil. It taught us even greater truths about goodness. We saw the heights of character that so many seemingly ordinary people possess. We felt the deep goodness that surrounds us. We learned to cherish each other just a bit more. And 22 years later, The memories of those who were lost continue to teach us and inspire us. They are the values we teach our children. They are the ideals we all strive for, the foundations that we build our communities on and our democracy on. The Sweeney Award has codified this transformative, positive impact because every fall we rededicate ourselves to those ideals by honoring the courage of those who were lost and celebrating the heroic acts of our neighbors today. Most of you may know the story of this award, but it's always worth telling again. Amy was an American Airlines flight attendant who lived in Acton with her husband Michael and their 2 young children. On September 11th, she was working on American Airlines Flight 11. At great personal risk, Amy contacted the ground crew to convey critical information about the hijackers before losing her life to this terrible act. The Madeline Amy Sweeney Award memorializes Amy's courage and the spirit of so many who were lost on September 11th. It recognizes exceptional acts of civilian bravery by people who, without regard for their own safety, acted to save the lives of others. This year's recipients of the Amy Sweeney Award live up to this high standard. A bit more about their actions. On April 14th at 3:38 a.m., emergency responders were dispatched to an address on Pleasant Street in Berlin, Massachusetts, for a reported house explosion. When firefighters arrived on the scene, they found a house destroyed and a fire that would require the support of 10 different towns to put out. They also found 4 people digging through burning rubble, lifting portions of the roof, climbing over live wires, and dodging raining fire in an effort to save their neighbors. One resident of the house was lost, but another was saved, pulled from the burning rubble by the heroic actions of those 4 neighbors. Those 4 neighbors are Jonathan Golis, Brian Clemmer, Dylan Clemmer, and Robert Wheeler, all from Berlin, Massachusetts. And today we are pleased and honored to present them with the annual Madeline Amy Sweeney Award. If we could ask our 4 recipients to come forward, we can present them.
I now have the pleasure of introducing our last speaker of the day, his sister, Rosemary Brennan, president of the Sisters Congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph's, Boston. They are celebrating their 150 years of service anniversary this year. They came to Boston, since they came to Boston. It was a time when the world was needing a lot of unity, and that unity was given to us through the education of Sisters of St. Joseph's. Sister Rosemary Brennan has spent a lot of her time in spiritual ministries. She has done individual and group supervision of spiritual directors. She has directed and presented at numerous retreats throughout the United States and was the director of the St. Joseph's Retreat Center in Cohasset for 11 years. More recently, she has served on her congregation's leadership team. She is presently involved with the St. Joseph's Spiritual Ministries. Like most Sisters of St. Joseph's, Sister Rosemary started her ministry as an elementary school teacher in a parochial school in the Boston area. My two sisters, and our late brother John, were educated by the Sisters of St. Joseph's at St. Mary's Elementary School, and my sisters and I went to that high school. But my brother John was sent to the Christian Brothers in West Roxbury at Catholic Memorial. He was their second graduating class. So I am pleased to introduce Sister Rosemary Brennan to offer some words of comfort and a benediction. Thank you, Sister Rosemary.
Good morning. I am honored to be with you this morning and humbled to participate in this annual Massachusetts 9/11 commemorative experience. This date of September 11th is one, as you well know, that is seared into the souls and the soul of our nation. On that heartbreaking day 22 years ago, your lives were forever changed. So coming together each year to remember the loved ones you so tragically lost, and to be mindful of all who so courageously gave of themselves on that day and in the days to follow, is our sacred responsibility. In the immediate aftermath of that awful day, there was a coming together as a nation community, as we grieved and mourned with you, as we tried to express support and care. We even allowed our kinder and more compassionate side as a nation to emerge. However, somehow we as a people and country have lost the memory of how we tried to be our better selves at that time. Thankfully, you, the children and loved ones, challenge us each year and throughout the year to remember to be that better self. You do it by witnessing to us of your courage, your tenacity, and your resilience. The choice of this year's theme, the legacy of the children, acknowledges and affirms your creativity and generativity. A creativity that is committed to keeping alive the memory of your loved ones by continuing to share how their life and spirit has shaped you and given you life and meaning and purpose. As you know, legacy is defined as handing on from the past. You, the children, individually and together, have created and woven together a powerful past. You have shown that profound loss has the potential and the possibility of leading to a generative and meaningful life. A life that witnesses to love and hope. You, the children, the living legacies, are the shoulders upon which future generations will stand, remembering and finding blessing in you and the legacy you continue to create and pass on. As a sister of St. Joseph, I too value and appreciate the legacy of standing on the shoulders of others who modeled how to be people of faith, of courage, and of service to the dear neighbor, and to do it like you, with hope and love. So let me conclude with this prayer for all of us. Loving and merciful God, you formed us and blew the breath of life into us, creating us for love. You acknowledge your all-inclusive love and your depth of grace in our lives. We recognize our world is in need of a future with hope. We pray for the grace to listen intentionally to the cries of our times and to offer ourselves in service to the most vulnerable among us. May our lives always radiate a love and hope that stretches openly and outwardly to embrace all of humanity. Amen.
Thank you all for being here today. On behalf of the Massachusetts 9/11 families, I hope that today's ceremony has brought honor, comfort, and a renewed sense of spirit to all those present. May God bless all those who are missing and remembered today, and may God bless the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the United States of America. Thank you, and never forget 9/11. The ceremony has come to a close. you all for being here today. On behalf of the Massachusetts 9/11 families, I hope that today's ceremony has brought honor, comfort, and a renewed sense of spirit to all those present. May God bless all those who are missing and remembered today, and may God bless the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the United States of America. Those, please stand as the Sergeant at Arms escorts our dignitaries from the chamber.